Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us for another edition of Raising Vibration Radio and Journey in Consciousness. I am one of your hosts, Reverend Raven, and our other host, Tammy Licente, is hanging out in Virginia on a retreat. Lucky devil you. And one of our guests that happened to show up tonight, Tom Coates, is with us. In action, or missing in action, is Dr. Raymond Moody. We've reached out, but no answer yet. So we are having him in our prayers this evening that he is in healthy top condition. And if we hear anything from him, we will let you know during this broadcast. So with all that being said, thank you for joining us tonight. And Tammy, please take it away.
Hi, everybody. Happy Saturday evening. I hope I sound all right. I don't have a headset and it's kind of echoing in here, so I apologize. But I've been at an amazing retreat here this weekend. And tonight we're going to be talking with Tom Coates. And we were discussing prior to the show a couple of different things. One, we were just discussing different ways to look at aging and experiencing it. So would you like to just continue our conversation, Tom? I mean, for those of you who don't know Tom, we've had him on many times tonight. We have Tom Coates with us.
Yeah, the infamous.
To see Raymond Moody, I'm sorry that I hope they won't be too disappointed.
No, we're not going to be disappointed, and I'm sure Ray has either just somehow forgotten about it or I don't know. But we'll just hold him energetically with us in the broadcast this evening. And Tom, why don't we just dive right into what we were talking about? We were kind of at the beginning of a pretty meaty conversation.
Okay.
Different perspectives of aging these days.
Yeah, we were talking about the aging process, or how should we say, the conventional ideas that we have, the cultural ideas we have about aging, I am presently at an age. I'm nearly 20 years older than my mother was when she passed away, and I'm 15 years older than my dad was when he passed away, I would say probably in terms of my physical capacities, 20 years younger than either one of them was when they passed away. Now, I'm not in my 20s or 30s anymore, but I have approached all this from a perspective of the idea that we really are creating the reality we have as we go along. We're making it up as we go along. And when I was 14 years old, I had an experience where I was home sick with the flu, and I was by myself. My parents had split. My mother was working, and flu was a regular visitor in my life. It's something I'd been having since I was a small child. My brother and I both, and so when I was running a fever, and my skin was gray, and so forth and so on. And so I was home from school, and so being a 14-year-old male and relatively healthy in terms of things, I was trying to imagine myself with a good-looking babe, a young teenage girl who hopefully was more sexually experienced than I was, who could lead me into some mischief or something. And so anyway, I'm thinking of myself as like Burt Lancaster and whoever it was on the beach in the movie Pearl Harbor, and back in the 50s, and rolling around in the surf and making out and so forth, and the trouble was I still had the flu. I couldn't, and so I thought, well, maybe if I change the scene to a mountain stream, so I'd try that. And I was really a talented daydreamer. I would spend most of my time in class and school daydreaming. That's how I would able to get through it. And so I changed to a mountain stream and I had the same issue. So I said maybe a Hawaiian lagoon, So I'm some waterfall with a little lake, and same deal. And so I went through several other things. And I thought, well, geez, this is no fun. Wherever I go, I've got this luscious 15-year-old babe, a year older than I am, and much more experienced, and I still got the flu,
no good.
Yeah, no good. And
It's
so,
no good.
right. And so I thought, well, I worked at this thing, and I thought there's something here for me, but I don't know what it is. And so I thought I just need to let it go I'm in flow. So I thought I need to let it go for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And because I had the flu, I was, didn't have very high energy anyway. So I fell off to sleep. It's about 10:30 in the morning. And I woke up about 45 minutes later. And it was like this huge explosion of light in my mind and this huge download of information. It was just a cascade, a waterfall, Niagara Falls coming through my consciousness. And it was all about this whole dilemma. And the information was, the first part of the information was, if you could imagine yourself without the flu, you will no longer have the flu. And then it just went off from there. That was like the starting blocks on an 800-meter race or 1,600-meter race or whatever. And the idea was that we create our reality with our expectations, with our visuals, with our beliefs, and all these things, and this is something that would have usefulness for health, but that was just the beginning of the scope of this method, and it not only went to longevity and aging and so forth. It went to how we manifest as humans to begin with.
I just find it fascinating. I just need to pause for a minute. It is absolutely fascinating to me, and astonishing, and it's a major testament to you to be able to hold your focus with this. You were 15 years old, and talk about cutting edge.
14. I was 14. Imagining a 15-year-old girl.
And I mean, we discussed today a lot of different topics, realizing we are surfing literally the cutting edge things, right? We just like to swim on that cusp. But to think, whatever year that was, if you feel like disclosing or not, it's irrelevant. I mean, it was a good minute ago. And for you to be a teenager and to take it to heart and practice it is astonishing to me. And as your friend, I know for certain that you have. And I personally believe it has a lot to do with how you are approaching.
well, the year. I don't want to. The year was 1958.
Yeah.
1958.
Yeah.
And so
people are still just learning this stuff today. Like, we're creating things with our thoughts. I just find it fascinating. I just needed to just pop in and say it because it never ceases to amaze me when I hear that particular story.
Well, it's one of the things that, from my own perspective, the experiences I had were not necessarily all that different from experiences that many people have. It's just that I thought they were important, even though our culture diminishes the value of these things, and most people discard them as if they had no value.
And what exactly are you referencing? I don't want
the fact that our culture does not support these kinds of ideas. And but this is where my we were talking about the aging process. This is where it began for me, and so I took that. I mean, again, as I said, I was given guidance during that download, and I would ask questions and get answers, and like a voice in my head, and the guidance was that we are creating our literally our physical presence is from our intentions, from our visualization, from our ideas about ourselves, and this is what sustains us, and that those who have issues don't have them without their own input, even though they may not be aware of it when they have them, and that there are always alternatives to events and so forth, and it related not only to our physical presence. I mean, it eventually went to shapeshifting. If you want to be a bird, or if you want to be a dog, or a tiger, or whatever, you can experience that reality as well. And so it's something that, and the information was clear that even if you cannot, in this particular instance, perfectly visualize yourself with the flu by the ocean, or in a lagoon in Hawaii, or in a mountain stream, or whatever, you can still take this concept and use it going forward to keep yourself in good health as a prophylactic against contracting this or that. And that was nice. I used to have the flu from the time I was born 2 or 3 times a year, and like most of us, or many of us did, and that was the last time I had it.
That's
in the
amazing.
fall of 1958. And
can I just add something here?
Sure.
So, everybody knows.
Side, by the way.
Right. Everybody knows I recently had some oral surgery done. And when I was having it, I really thought I was going to have to be put under and blah, blah, blah. But like you, I saw myself, visualized myself somewhere else other than in that dental office. I let them take those big, long needles and stick it up into my gums and deaden everything, and listen to them cut and yank and do everything they want to do. But I really wasn't present for all that. I didn't become present until after everything wore off, and then I felt the pain. But I may have, maybe if I'd stayed in that state like you're talking about with the flu, right? I could have offset this whole punishment I gave myself this past week with it all. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Yeah, because during the procedure, I was totally out of it, right? And then coming out of it and not focusing my mind somewhere else. So I understand exactly what you're saying. The mind is very powerful. Just like we were having a conversation earlier, mind over matter. Maybe that's what keeps us from getting sick, period, right?
Well, I suppose you could use that expression, but that's not how I think of it. Mind over matter suggests some sort of a dominance theme or something like that. matter is not against mind. There's a dance going on at all times, and matter will be in harmony with mind, more so than we would like to acknowledge.
Exactly.
But it will be in harmony with it. So it's not a question of mind over matter, as it is your matter will follow your mind and your intention. Intentions are incredibly powerful instruments of creation.
Yeah, it seems like it's magnetically, like it just pulls towards you. You know, I recently started doing something that's been really kind of neat. When, say, for example, I haven't had oral surgery recently, but say, for example, I was going to do that. Like you picturing yourself being all right, Tom, I can do that. But whenever I start stubbing my toe, if you will, like thinking, oh God, getting worked up, like anticipating it hurting or actually experiencing pain or something, this really new thing has started happening where I feel like I'm just grabbing that part of me that seems literally like an imprint. Like it's just this field, and I'm going through a motion of just removing it. And it's amazing.
Right.
It's really been neat. It's just been a completely different way to approach that. Sandy, did you pick up what I was just laying down? Because this has been really recent.
Yeah, I am picking up exactly what you're laying down, and
I found it really to work. I'm just saying.
And I get that, and I'm totally comprehending all of that. And you could think everything is fine and nice and dandy, but something can just come out of the blue.
That's what I'm saying. So the imprinting, right? That is so many old stories. This is how I'm interpreting it. It is so many old stories, and so many stories that weren't even my stories.
Right.
Older than me. So there's some level of knowing and awareness coming in that it just feels like I can literally take and peel up. I'm saying this figuratively, I'm consciously picturing doing it, right? Like peeling off like an imprint of like layers of other, just old stuff. And
elimination process.
Yeah, and letting go of it. But it's just been this new way of looking at it that I think is really neat. And I found it to be powerful, on whatever level. So I just thought I'd share that. But continue, Tom.
I'm sorry?
I said I just thought I would share that.
Yeah.
My current experiences with that. But please continue.
Well, I brought up the thing that occurred when I was 14 because that was an awakening for me that is still with me today, and it was not the first awakening. I had already been informed when I was on my 11th birthday that the life I had was one I had because I had chosen it, even though it was not necessarily. It was far from ideal. Let's put it that way. With the family circumstances, I was asking, why am I in this crazy family? And I got an answer because you chose it. That's why. But the fact that came through was itself incredibly empowering to me, it sort of was like a door, a window of light opening on a perspective that whatever our reality is, it's something we are creating. Exactly. And we can experience it any way we want. And so what I've gotten in more recent times in relation to this thing about the aging process, and I'm, this is, you don't think about the aging process when you're 11 or other than you want to be 16. and have a driver's license. At least in my day, that's how you felt about it. And you don't think about the aging process when you're 16 or even 20 or 30, or maybe you start a bit when you get to be 40 or so. When you get to be in the later 70s, it's something that's it's fairly current information on your mind. And I'm at the stage of life where I've had a lot of my contemporaries who have been friends for life who are no longer, they're pushing daisies at this point. And I've got a lot of others who are losing their minds, or they're physically debilitated, and they're on huge drug regimes and so forth, heart medications and this and that and the other thing, and I get calls every day from solicitors trying to sell some sort of new thing for Medicare and all that crap, and they want to know what drugs you on. Well, I'm not on any drugs. Why would I be on any drugs? But I mean, they don't believe that. You go, I've got a doctor, but I can't remember his name. I have to look him up because I only see him every 3 or 4 years, and because I lived the one I'd been with for a long 4 years before that, and so. But this to the point of the last couple of years. This has just been an attitude of my part, on my part, and but as both of you know from prior discussions we've had, I've been working on a regular basis with channels, and I've channeled stuff on my own account. Over the years, starting when I was a kid, and one of the things that has come through in recent time is that, and I don't know how to put this. I don't want to sound too far out there with this, but one of the things that's come through is that if I choose to, that my life could be extended for a couple 100 years or longer, maybe 250, maybe 300, and that this is more recent. This is more recent guidance than what I got when I was 14 years old, and that this is something that literally could become a model for humanity going forward. And that I'm not the only person with this particular opportunity, but this is one that's open to me, quote unquote, if I choose it. And the reason the choice aspect is so important, perhaps all important, is because there are so many cultural imprintings that have to be, and programmings that have to be released for the choice to be given leg, if you will. And I'm in a stage of life where again, as I say, those are my people that I've been friends with all my life who are still alive are mostly in a state of steep decline, and from a physical, mental, and other standpoint. And here I am. I'm looking at potentially another 100, 150. What the hell? And my intention is I don't want to become an old person. I would, if I'm gonna be 200, I'd like to be younger at 200 than I am at 77. And I'm assuming that if I could make the choice effectively to bridge that span, make that span, that I can get into a youthing program, not like it was a movie with oh, I can't remember the name, but the guy who went reversing his aging and becoming
Benjamin Buttons.
Yeah, Benjamin Button. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I don't want to go back to being a child, but I mean, but there is what this would take into account is the fact that however we present from one time to another from a physical perspective is largely controlled by our consciousness, and so if the choice is effectively made, and this choice, what I have discovered in exploring the ramifications of it is that it's not something you can do lightly. It's not something you can do flippantly. It's not something you can do sort of accidentally, and because you have to be willing and prepared to suffer losses that we are not programmed to do. We're not programmed to outlive our children and grandchildren. We're not programmed to continue working past a certain age. All these things that are so deeply embedded in our culture, in our society, in our political and governmental structure,
collective psyche,
in our economy, and all these things have to be released and rejiggered in order for this to happen, and that starts at the individual level, and so it only works from my examination of it. It only works if you can get to a deeper level of. It's only possible for it to work, because I can't say it's working with me yet, but it's only possible for it to work. I believe if you can get to a deeper level of yourself, that something closer to one might call your true self or your authentic self, or something that is not totally dependent on the programming that we have all been subjected to from the time we were born in this reality. So,
that's definitely. Wow.
Does that so I again, this is something I've
so essentially I would say by you and other people holding that level of consciousness about it, will start that process. I mean, it's taking all of these pieces and parts and letting go and deprogram and reprogram. And there's so much of it going on right now,
right,
in all areas, which is fascinating. We can go right back to what you were talking about that came in when you were 14, and take each topic and apply it to how that is actually showing up and playing out now. Because everything you named, if you go back to 1958, there was a paradigm, there was a framework around each one of those. And you can see over this period of time, like how they have completely broken apart, or they're in the process of. And it's really quite amazing I think, to be alive right now and witness it and be able to energetically and consciously participate with that process. I mean,
I agree. I firmly believe that a lot, let's say, I was going to say almost everyone, maybe that's too far, too much of a reach, but a great number of those incarnate on the planet today have chosen to be here now, in this reality, in this time of great and rapid change, perhaps more significant change than has ever occurred on planet Earth in the past. They've chosen to be here, to be present for that, participants in that, if not actively pushing the envelope in respect to it, at least holding space for it to happen in. And so I think that is something that is. There's a huge number of human population on Earth today that are here for that. At least 500 million people, if not way more than that.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So we have the potential critical mass to shift consciousness in a multitude of directions, and we're in, as Tammy, you mentioned to me that in the course of your seminar, it's come up that we're in a time of significant shift energetically, and we've been in that, and we're going to continue in that at least for another couple of years at this what may seem to some a frenetic pace, but what it is a point in which evolution is occurring at an exponentially faster pace than has occurred in the past.
Exactly.
And we with our consciousness and our intentions are here to shape the future. So.
Well, you know what? I just want to say that if you add up my two numbers, I'm only 8 years old. So I'm sticking with that. Okay?
If we add up your two numbers, Sandy, how did you just get to be 8 years old?
I'm 8 years old. I am 8.
What numbers are you adding up?
My so-called age, if you take 5 and 3 and add it up together, you get 8. So that's how old I am. I'm 8 years old and I'm enjoying my life.
Well, I'm only 6 then.
Good for you.
Yay!
What are those numbers you're adding up there, Sandy?
You're 10, Tom.
Yeah, see, you're 14, Tom.
13.
No, how old is he?
He's 10.
Oh, he's 10?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I don't.
No, but all jokes aside.
All
jokes aside.
Yeah, my birth number is 1. 10 1.
Oh, yeah. Whatever. Independence, I know.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of birthdays, Nathaniel wanted to know your birthday. What day? What year? I mean, not the day and month that you were born.
June 4, 1944.
There you go. June 4th, 1944, Nathaniel. He likes to do something. All right. Yeah. So he does some kind of... He likes to do like wood monkey or stone dinosaur. I don't know. Something that he does. Yeah, you're welcome. You guys hear that clicking going on?
Chinese astrology, I'm a monkey.
All right. Well, so am I. Welcome to my world. Let me see if it goes away when I mute myself. Hold on.
Okay. It's gone. So,
what are we waiting for? Is Sandy doing something?
There was a lot of distortion coming through.
Yeah, it wasn't. It continued on even after I mute myself. I think it's because you don't have a mic on this week that we're getting that distortion. What happened to your mic? Do you have it?
I thought it was in my bag with everything else, and it was not.
Ah, gotcha.
I hear you perfectly well, Tammy.
Yeah, but by me not having a mic, we're probably getting distortion, and I apologize. So
I'm in my cottage at Nag's Head on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. So I don't know if it's a distortion here or not, but can you hear me all right?
Oh yeah, we just had a listener type me and say, hey, there's a lot of, sounds like somebody typing in the background. And we've had that issue before, and I'm not even typing. It's the distortion of, when you do a podcast, you really should have a microphone on because of It could be the interference in a room, the electromagnetic field. It's all kinds of different variants that can happen. Now,
Okay.
Tammy, she just muted herself, and I'm not hearing it right now. So, yeah, there's no typing going on, Nathaniel. There's distortion. It's coming from Tammy's end, and it's got.
Sandy,
Yeah.
with me muted and with Tom muted, it's still all distorted. I'm just saying, you're not hearing it, but it is on this end. So we're going to have to, I guess, just keep moving on.
Yeah, we're gonna keep going forward.
I don't know. I mean,
There's nothing else we can do about it right now. So
a
learning curve here.
yes,
So tell us about
learning curves.
right. So tell us
Love us
about
where we're at.
right. Tell us about your revelation of this retreat that you're at this weekend.
Oh, there's been many. It's just been a really powerful weekend. But one of the things that I've been particularly impressed with is I've been experiencing things a lot very different than how I normally do when I have big growth periods, so to speak, or awakening periods. I've been experiencing things much different than I ever have before. And more often than not, there's no words to truly convey the new experiences I feel like I'm having growth-wise in the spiritual consciousness realm, if you will. And on a lot of levels, it was another period of feeling really isolated because I didn't it was a lot of ego death going on because I was losing constructs that I had kind of become attached to, and I'm experiencing things now where there just are no constructs for this. The kind of stuff that I feel like we're talking about are across the board cutting edge changes that are happening to humanity right now in every single department. Just as Tom was talking about what the download he got when he was 14, we've a lot of people who have been drawn to this kind of work, if you want to call it light workers or whatever. I really shy away from any kind of labels in that department. But, you know, I have felt compelled in my life to energetically send heart energy to the planet. Other people are feel like doing other things, but I believe over time this is really causing changes, you know, and I think it's neat to look at. And one of the things I really noticed this weekend is I'm not the only one who's experiencing this. People are really talking about it. They're experiencing across the board things much different. And I got to the thing I was real excited about when I came on tonight was seeing a couple. One of the people were in the middle of the healing circle, and it was this couple, and they role played from an unbelievable place. It was the most beautiful thing to witness. The fear and vulnerability of being able to communicate openly and honestly about how they felt and what their needs were without projecting that responsibility onto the other person. I mean, this is a big kind of process, but to watch it was unbelievable. And I can see in my own life and in the lives of people around me that the way we interact with each other is really, really, really changing. And I attribute a lot of that, you know, a lot of the things that we've gone through has caused us to stop and sit with ourselves. And in doing so, I think it's just caused all kinds of different energetic movement in the human being, which is causing, in my opinion, a lot of energy to change and the way we interact with each other to change. So it's just really beautiful to see it and have other people be talking about, even in the spiritual community, that the energy is palatably changing. We are experiencing things really different than we used to. It's just very interesting to me. Tom, you got anything on that?
Yeah. It sounds like a wonderful seminar you're in, actually.
Yeah, it really is.
And it sounds completely consistent with, a lot of the guidance I've gotten myself in over recent times. And I would say the general gist of that guidance has been, we're at a time when in order to move to the next level, if you will, we are being called upon to let go of our preconceived notions of who we are and what we're supposed to be, what we're supposed to do, what we're supposed to stand for, and all these things. And I've gotten a lot of guidance, literally that let go of all my conceptions of everything associated with my name, and I take that seriously, as seriously as I know how to take anything, which is limited. But in any event, I do take it seriously. I don't know quite how to unpack that, if you will.
Exactly.
But it's something that may have. What I've found is, from me, and I, as both of you all know, and I just disclosed on the air here, since June 4th I'm a Gemini, so I'm all wrapped up in my head on things. But what this has precipitated is a sort of an emotional awakening for me that is something that I had not experienced in my life before, and in a way of integrating in my emotional body in more complete ways and so forth, and but that's sort of a vehicle more than that's not an endpoint. That's something that is sort of like, well, you're going into the mountains, so you got to have some snowshoes because there's going to be lots of snow up there, and so it's I'm in a position, and I don't know quite how to describe it, but I'm in a position at this what some would say the end stage of life. And for all I know, I could walk right in the street and get run over by a truck tomorrow, and that would be the end of this one. There'd be another one coming soon after.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm in a position of being at this stage of life and feel as if I'm in the process of giving birth to a new being within myself. And I don't have a pre I don't have a script for who that is or what that is. All I know is that a lot of what has been the significant aspects of the life that I have enjoyed to this point are going to have to be cast aside, and in order to make way for a more complete, more authentic, more true representation of whoever I am. And again, as you know, Tammy, I don't know if I've ever mentioned it to you, Sandy. I personally, from the soul perspective, have for years for the last 15 years, have pretty much given up the use of the term I, because I don't really know what it means in a personal sense anymore. In that after discovering that many of us, myself included, are animated by more than a multitude of different souls that are collaborating for the purpose of my lifetime, and only my lifetime.
Tom, can you just for this? Can you give a little definition of what you're saying for someone who might not understand that?
Well, for those who have any concept of soul,
Mm-hmm.
And many of us don't, because we're certainly not taught much about it by religion, by any conventional sources. It happens to be a subject that I have been fascinated by since I was a child.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I was not drawn to much into conventional religion was because I was interested in soul and whatever the underlying thing, which we most frequently put in the basket we call soul, was generating our life force, and all that, and so I have spent a lot of my time exploring that from the time I was a child, actually, and in the last 16 years that I've been involved in regular channeling with multiple channels, and since I was getting direct guidance from spirit guides when I was a child, is when I first started exploring this directly. What I've discovered is that a soul, all it takes is one soul to animate a human being, and everything according to the guidance that I've gotten, everything in creation is, or just about everything, not necessarily every last thing, but everything that's a sentient being is animated by soul, and it takes only one, and what some spiritual traditions would call a soul fragment, a fragment that's part of a larger entity that it refers to as a soul. We call it a soul. We call that fragment a soul in our culture. And what I have discovered, though, is that an increasing number of us are animated by more than one, and the numbers will range from 2 to up to 10 or 12, and this is something that is, according to guidance that I've gotten, is something that is being increased across creation in this particular realm of this universe, for instance, and we're experiencing it on Earth just like it's being experienced on other planets, which may be far more advanced than we are, but it's still being experienced. And with this, the reason I have found this important from a personal perspective is that it sort of undermines or it gives weight to the idea of diminishing the importance of the ego, the egoic consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
which is the I. When we think of who we are, we think of ourselves in the first person singular, which in the English language, unlike any other language in the world, expressed with a capital I, and every other language expresses it usually with a as a word, but not with a singular something that a capital I looks like a one. I mean, which means that in English we are given, by virtue of the language we have, a greater potential to explore the meaning of ego, both in a distorted way and in an objective way than perhaps any other language on the planet. And so when you realize what we think of in many of these spiritual traditions, that I've spoken quite a lot about the Michael teachings within the framework of the time I've been with the two of you on here, and many of the Michael students tend to want to conflate their egoic consciousness, their I-ness, with their soul. And if they realize that their soul is a committee and not an I, it's a we at best, then it sort of puts a pin in the balloon and takes the air out of it. And maybe that's one reason the Michael community has not been welcoming of my information about multi-fragment souls, multiple souls with people that are animated by what we would call multiple souls. But that's where my guidance is that within a century from now, that will be universal in terms of newborn people incarnating, and so what that is, from what I've gotten, is the natural drive of creation towards greater and greater levels of complexity, and to not only to experience greater levels of complexity, but to be able to deal with greater levels of complexity, such as the energy that we're experiencing right now that you were referring to in your seminar.
Yeah, and what and I would like to pop in and just add this right now. So it seems to me that things that seem very new and awkward, like for me, I'm walking in a new pair of shoes that I've never walked in before. I'm communicating in ways I've never communicated before. It's just a lot of change now. I mean, I've gone through lots of change in my life, but this is really raw, new stuff for us. But my point is in the future, this not too distant.
May I break in for 1 minute?
What's this?
Let me break in for 1 minute. What I want to make the point of is, you said this is really new stuff, and I second that. And it's not just that this is a teaching that you were not familiar with before.
Exactly, that's my point.
This is something brand new that has not been downloaded to the planet, to the human consciousness on the planet before. Huh?
The thing that's been so interesting, I don't actively channel the way you do, but yes, I channel and have been channeling for a very long time for myself and how I interact in my life.
Right.
We've all, our group, we've been getting the same information. What was so beautiful about walking in here Friday night is seeing people I didn't even know at all.
Right.
They're getting the same thing. And not only that, there's an inability to not show up for it. It's like it's calling you to show up for it, and it's calling you to action. Would you agree with that, Tom? It's like it's calling forth an action.
Right.
So we're in it right now, and I believe we're going to be in it for years. Right? This is years, but this is going to be the new normal. It's going to be so neat, and what I'm witnessing is thinking, I cannot tell you the tears that I've had every gamut of emotions. I mean, astrologically, there's a lot of stuff going on. Tomorrow's an interesting date, but it's just been refreshing to one, realize I'm not the only one getting this. Our group's not, which we suspected anyways. We already knew that. But to get the affirmation and to see it all being in action, and it just people cooperating and just stepping into it, because you have to lean into something very, very vulnerable and uncomfortable, because when we discuss interacting in ways that we never have before, that's really vulnerable, because nobody, it's like, whoa, what is that? You know, it's interesting. So that's all I have on it. Back.
Well, I think that's absolutely important, because it is brand new stuff, and it is giving all of us an opportunity to step out of the patterns that we've been in, the programming that we've been in. I mean, the movie series The Matrix comes to mind here.
It's becoming comical. It's literally comical.
We're all in a position of becoming like Neo, and who was the guy? Who was the guy who was his sort of mentor?
Oh, come on, audience! I can't think of his name. You know, Sandy.
Sandy. Sandy, did
no, I don't know. What is The Matrix?
Yes.
So let me think of the characters. Hold on a minute. Freak. I can't. You know, it's been so long since I've seen that movie.
Well,
but I'll take the blue pill.
It's more like Avatar, and I think Avatar is a really good word to use these days.
Right. Well, that's what we are. You know, that's what I'm seeing you on the screen. You're seeing me on the screen. I'm seeing myself, and I'm seeing a raven on Sandy's screen. And but that's exactly, you know, the movie Avatar
exactly
opened up a perspective that was incredibly useful, because historically the term avatar, which comes to us from Sanskrit, was a term that was used to describe someone who was incarnate in human form, that was Morpheus. Morpheus was the character.
Good job.
Sandy. Well, my son-in-law just showed me on the screen.
I just found it too, but I was letting you talk. So
and unfortunately, I gather that in the new iteration of, there's a new movie coming out on with the Matrix that Morpheus will not be part of for some reason. I don't know why, but anyway. The avatar concept was one that has historically been associated with sort of a demigod, sort of a half human, half godlike character, and in James, who's the guy that did the Matrix, the same guy that did Titanic. Sandy, you can help us out with this one now. Look on your phone and pick it up for me.
Let me. Okay, so
the director of
the guy was not on the Titanic, though. I know who you're talking about, but he didn't play in the Titanic.
He did the Titanic, and he did
and Matrix.
And no, not Matrix. He did the Titanic, and he did Avatar.
All right, hold on a second.
I'll check it if you won't. Come on.
I'm checking it. but I'm thinking Leo DiCaprio, which he did the Titanic, but Avatar, I don't think that he was in Avatar. James Cameron, the movie director, is that what you're talking about?
James Cameron, yes.
Oh, okay.
James Cameron.
All right.
It was James Cameron.
I have my iPad, Sandy. I can assist you.
Yeah. It was James Cameron's genius that gave us a new concept for Avatar. And what it gives us the insight is that each of our physical presentations, the one that is known as Tom Coates, the one that's known as Tammy Lucente, the one that's known as Sandy Beagler, is really just an avatar for a higher level of consciousness that is using our physical expression as a means of its own creative self-expression. That's all we are. We are avatars, and we have, like in the movie, we have an ability to expand ourselves within the framework of being an avatar. But the avatar itself, without that inspiration of that other being that is animating it, is a lifeless sack of flesh, and so it gives us an avenue for an expansion of our consciousness about what we are as beings, and that which animates us is the deeper level. We can call it soul, we can call it beingness, and there's some guidance that's come through in recent times to the effect that soul itself is a misnomer, and that there are levels of beingness that cannot be encompassed within the framework of the term we use as soul. That's probably a discussion for another time, but in any event, it is the soul or the higher consciousness that is animating us from whatever level, which is the closer representation of who we are rather than the physical expression. And the physical expression is very much guided and limited by our social, cultural, political, economic programming, and there is the move afoot now, and the opportunity now is to transcend those limitations and make it something far grander than what it currently is.
So Tom, I've been thinking a lot the past couple of weeks and about the word sovereignty, right? And it's so funny, like it keeps coming up. It's like sovereignty, but when it comes up, it's making, it's causing me to go deep inside, and I keep getting, and another thing that was very interesting about this weekend that I would just like to share real quick, because sovereignty kept coming up, and as I would go in with that and communicate, like, okay, what is that saying to me, what it was saying is stand in your complete sovereignty, where you 100% are the one that's in alignment with you, which would be in alignment with whatever I deem my higher self or the highest aspect of me to be, the whole group or what have you. But in doing that, another thing I was really astonished about this weekend, I've had the experience numerous times that I would go to this very, very still space, and I kept using the word ancient. So I went from sovereignty to going in, and then ancient was coming up, ancient. But this was ancient, and I kept trying to, I was grappling with the ancientness of it, and it really feeling like it was before even this place and time. And to even say that, like, who was I to even say that? But it was an abyssful, steady kind of energy place that I would go in meditation. Interestingly, others are experiencing the exact same thing. We were experiencing it together this weekend, and I just think that's incredibly powerful and worth bringing up in conversation.
And the reason that ancient, in what I get,
Mm-hmm.
when you make reference to this ancientness is the fact that at the level of your beingness,
Mm-hmm.
however it should be called, everything that exists in creation, this whole entire universe, all the parallels of it,
Mm-hmm.
all the alternates of it
Mm-hmm.
are less, they're new, they're less ancient than your beingness.
And that's just like, wow, and that will mess with your head a little bit.
But
I'm just saying, I'm being real and honest, and that's
but
just
I
what
mean,
I'm gonna
is it?
be. I'm
But
having
when
those
I say that,
experiences, and it does, like, you're like, that's a lot to unpack.
but when I say that, does it resonate?
Absolutely. And what's
Yeah.
interesting is I'm not the only one having this experience. Now,
Right.
all the years going down the rabbit holes, all the conversations,
Right.
these are conversations we've never had before.
Right.
And we're collectively talking about remembering
Right.
before
Right.
this galaxy.
Yeah.
That's just a little mind-blowing to me.
Yeah. And this galaxy, but what I'm trying to tell you is the galaxy
Is this galaxy's young?
it's just something, it's just the latest thing.
I get that, but
Yeah.
But okay, but we're even having this conversation just kind of flippantly. Like
Right. Well, I know.
that in itself is pretty astonishing.
And there are civilizations in the galaxy far older than ours.
Exactly.
You know, there are my information is that within the galaxy that roughly 40% of that there are, you know, hundreds of thousands of inhabited planets with sentient beings,
Mm-hmm.
and that roughly 40% of those in this galaxy and in this galactic neighborhood are humans of one form or another,
Mm-hmm.
you know, either less evolved or more evolved, and frankly, most of them, the majority of them, are more evolved than we are.
Yeah.
But the human template is apparently a very common template that is used for experiencing and expressing sentience in what we call physicality. And it's not because it's by itself so special. It's because the being, the souls that want to express find it a convenient form to use, a convenient avatar to inhabit, if you will. So you know, and it's wonderful to be able to be in this form as a template of expression, and to be able to, you know, contemplate being collaborative with the higher consciousness that has created us in a significant way. And that's where we are. Rather than just, we're moving from being children playing in the sandbox and throwing all the sand out onto the grass, to becoming, you know, more fully engaged beings in a physical sense, which is pretty, you know, it's a significant transition.
Fabulous. And no matter what angle I kind of look at this from, it seems things can be, life will be experienced much different, much better. Sickness, you will have to go away. I mean, if we just hold on to this one thing of really realizing we are the ones creating the movie, if you will. Like, seriously. Okay,
Yeah.
What we're seeing on that screen is only a projection of what's going on within.
Yeah, James Cameron is a wonderfully gifted director and writer and creator. And we all are James Camerons of our own lives.
Yes.
And of the reality that we are inheriting, or that we are experiencing. I'm sorry.
Well, we're on this cutting edge where people,
Yeah.
where we are really becoming awakened to this fact. You know, victimization is falling away, because when you wake up to this fact, you can't be a victim anymore. But love and compassion is held for ourselves as we let go of that, and as we witness others who haven't as of yet. And it's all energetic, it feels like to me. That's how I'm experiencing it. And it's like a role that, you know, we're cohesively kind of doing it. Some areas looks a little messy, but whatever. I'm not trying to minimize that.
Right.
But I suspect, we've had talks about this before. You know, I don't commit these things to memory. I stay pretty fluid. But
me too.
I know, but you're a Volt, okay? I mean, you stay very fluid, but you retain the information and can pull it back. I take it in the moment and then let go of it. I don't archive as well as you, Mr. Coates. But the period that we've been discussing and playing with, coming into for quite some time as a community, and you and I have you've talked about this period, and I don't know what context we were discussing and what framework we were using, or you were using when you were discussing it, but this period lasting an exponentially long time, because we won't be firing up creation energy, because it's kind of blissed out when you start, and it really is blissed out. This
well,
really is true.
I would say, if I may, yes and no to that. And
Please do.
What you're referring to is discussions I think you and I have had about the raw teachings, the Law of One teachings. Mm-hmm. And for those who are not familiar with them, the raw material was channeled by a woman named Carla Ruckert, along with a fellow named Jim McCarty and Don. I can't call Don's last name, but there's three of them in Eastern Kentucky in 1979, 80, 81. And what came through, and Carla was the primary channel. What came through was a wonderful and incredibly high level cosmology and metaphysical structure of how reality is from this group called the RA, R-A. And it's called the Law of One. It came through in what was originally a 5-volume set. It's now been expanded to, originally a 4-volume set. It's now been expanded to 5 volumes. And the idea was that we exist in an octave of consciousness, and there are levels of consciousness within that, which they refer to as density levels. There's 7 density levels. We're in number 3, moving into number 4, and so forth. Let me give you
Can I ask a question? Can I just ask a question, pretty please? So if we're getting ready to go into octave 4, would that have anything to do with this sense of before this galaxy, sensing from it feels like I'm sensing it from a different perspective someplace else, or no? I don't know.
Well, it very well could, and by many measures, channel guidance I've gotten indicated that we actually, from a planetary consciousness perspective, the Earth transition went over the threshold of into 4th density in 2008, and that some humans did as well, but most are still way back in 3rd density, and some are still trying to get into 3rd from 2nd. But in any event, here's an interesting perspective on that. I was working several days ago, just within the past week, in reference to the Law of One teachings. The Law of One teachings probably are the most articulate set of metaphysical teachings that have ever been downloaded into human consciousness to this point. And one of the tenets, if you will, of the law of one teachings is that we're in an octave of consciousness, and the raw were asked within the framework of that, what is it in the next octave? And the information that came through was, we don't know. We don't have access to information beyond this octave. Now, the raw are in the mid-level 6th density. They're near the top of the ladder within the framework of this octave. In recent times, I have gotten information which purports to come from another octave. It comes from what has expressed itself as another aspect of the beingness that animates me, which has a counterpart and a higher octave, higher than 7th density in this octave, and so forth. And when I inquired about that, what came through was, well, the mere fact that the raw have created a framework for themselves in which they are unable to pierce from one octave to another does not need to limit you.
Exactly.
You can create whatever reality you want. You don't have to be limited by the limitations of the raw, even though they're at 6th density and you're only at 4th or 3rd or whatever. Which is, in other words, whatever framework you create has its own boundaries and limitations, and they're chosen by those who create it.
Mm-hmm.
They're not necessarily limitations at all, and so the reality that's being imparted here is we have none, except those we choose.
What we're saying is these are all already formed constructs and frameworks that have all been used before, and there's a big awareness going on right now that in fact people are becoming very aware that you can just create new framework, and people are coming together energetically, consciously coming together and doing just that. And it's
exactly.
And it's really amazing. It's really amazing.
Right.
Yeah. I'm quite happy to be participating.
Me too.
It's amusing.
Yeah.
So, Sandy, do we have any questions? I know we're at like 10 minutes till the end here.
Actually, we have a little over 13 minutes left in the show. And let's see. Nathaniel wrote Lionsgate. I don't know if he's referring to Leo.
It's the portal this tomorrow, Lionsgate.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful.
I gotcha.
If you follow things like that. It's powerful, in my opinion, it's powerful whether you follow it or not. But if you pay attention to it, it's really interesting.
Interesting. And that's pretty much it. I mean, we got a lot of people commenting on the typing noise tonight, which I have no control over. I've changed my audio mic several times and I keep myself on mute and you can still hear it. I don't know.
And audience, I so apologize. I promise I'm going to be much better in the future with the sound. I've had 2 crazy weekends and I will get this under control very soon.
Well, maybe there's some reptilians in the background typing in order to create an interference pattern.
Amen. That's exactly what's going on here. Yeah. So we were going to talk about holding space, right? Like that was a big thing that's going on for you this weekend, right? Holding space at your what's the word I'm looking for? Seminar, retreat.
Yeah, so the retreat I'm at is called Healing Heart, and we were discussing, but prior to the show, Sandy, the holding space and were you saying the right and wrong ways to do it? We were discussing not projecting our feelings onto other people. I mean, you take it, Sand. I haven't heard from you much.
I gotcha. So there's some tips for holding space that I want to share with you guys tonight. So when you're holding space for another human being, really listen, refocus your listening skills. A lot of time when we're talking to someone, our main focus is on what we're going to say next. But let's don't do that. Let's just really listen and not really have a response right off the bat. We don't have to be processing in our minds all the time. Do you guys have anything that you want to add to that part?
I'm still holding space for you to continue.
Okay, well, there we go. All right. No, so here's another thing. Don't jump into problem-solving mode. I don't know about you. I'm codependent. I am working on that, and that is one of the things. People-pleasing. If somebody comes to me with a problem, I want to be able to fix that problem for them. I want to jump in there, just do it. Let's get it over with. But that's not necessarily what we need as human beings, is for somebody to solve our problems. We want to be able to express those problems and share them and just get them off of our chest so that we can process and listen to our own self. So don't jump into that problem-solving mode right there. Another thing is don't center yourself. This is my favorite thing. Somebody tells you a problem, you're listening to them, and you want to relate to them, and you come up with your own situation that's happening in your life at the same time as theirs. Well, that's not really holding space. That's like being on a show where the co-host is like, "Oh yeah, I did this, and this is exactly I can relate." Well, holding space is not called relating space. We're not relating to each other. We're just going to be there. We're going to be mindful. We're going to listen, and we're just going to feel, take that heart space energy and give them lots of love and peace and understanding so that they can come to the resolution on their own. That's one of the big things. What were they teaching at your retreat this weekend, Tammy?
So, Sandy, I think it's really beautiful that you just brought all of that up. So, codependency, I think there have been various levels of that practice for a very long time. We are moving into interdependent relationships, which means, again, we will come back to this thing of sovereignty. That's how it's showing up for me. But it seems we really are just taking responsibility for our own emotions, not reflecting them on other people, doing deep inner work on ourselves, and genuinely showing up, just like what you said, Sandy. But that is not a natural way for most of us to show up. So bringing conscious awareness to the different ways we could, like everything you just mentioned, I have to consciously work on a regular basis, But the awareness is really, really prevalent, and the energetic support is really, really present. It feels like, for me, anyways. We're even having this conversation.
Oh yeah, it can be hard to be vulnerable. Yeah,
like part of what I'm alluding to. So.
No, I got you. It can be really hard to be vulnerable with somebody, and while you're holding space for somebody, it can be helpful to, express that you believe in them and know that you believe in them so much that the outcome that they want, if you can just get them to trust in their own knowledge and intuition and all that. That's one of the greatest things about holding space, is just being that mirror, reflecting back to them and letting them know that they have this, they got this. And and in that process to remind all of ourselves to be open to whatever emotions come up in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most important part. You talked about emotions. That's really important.
Yes.
If I may, on this holding space thing, to me, Sandy, and also Tammy, this holding space, which is clearly an important thing to do, that translates in my consciousness to allowing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we talked earlier about the idea of having an extended, doubling, tripling our life spans. That is holding space for ourselves to live instead of, it used to be, when my father was born, the life expectancy was in the 50s and or 40s, and it was expanded, and now it's actually during the time of the COVID, it's going down, but it's in the high 70s. I'm about at the life expectancy of a human in the United States today, and so we're holding space, or potentially holding space for it to be expanded beyond that, and for all these other things too, for our expansion into a new form of human expression that we have not previously experienced before now. So I'm reminded here, and this is another can of worms, of the Earth Moon Project, in which in an earlier lifetime I was apparently involved in another galaxy, and that was made up of a consortium of species. The lead group was a human group in Andromeda. There were several other groups, one of whom was a group of, so what I'm told from channel guidance, of gaseous beings who were, quote, holding space for the creation of these huge projects from start to finish. And the information that came through was that the Earth's moon, which was created several million light years from Earth, for the Earth, took 3,000 years from start to finish to complete. And in order for that to occur, there needed to be assistance from groups other than those who were trying to do it, to, quote, hold the space that would allow them to create, to sustain the intention from start to finish to get it done. And so I throw that in because I think it has some significance in terms of what both of you were talking about. And that's where we are now with this transition we're going through.
How long is this transition going to last? It's killing me.
What?
I said, how long is this transition going to last? Because it's killing me.
Well, the current energy that we're in of high level transition is I got just Thursday of this week, going to last for at least another 2 years.
Oh my God, Tammy, God help you.
And then, what that may mean is that 2 years from now that we're going to ratchet the level of change up beyond where it is now. Who knows? But we're in it. What we're in right now, we're in for another 2 years.
Wow. Well, that, again, it's all on how you look at it. It's perspective, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's going on right now is great. I think what's going on right now
on the biggest level.
Yeah, I think what's going on right now is great. I hate to see it end in 2 years.
I'm totally with you guys too. All right. Well, we got about a minute left. Tom, any closing statements would you like to share with our listening audience this evening?
I don't know. We've covered a lot of ground tonight. I would just say for everyone out there to love yourself, love your neighbors, love your family, and be ready for becoming a new human being as we go forward.
Wow.
What about you, Miss Lucente? What do you have to say?
Well, what's just run through my mind 3 times was namaste.
Namaste. Namaste. We want to apologize tonight that Raymond Moody wasn't able to join us. I will reach out and try to find out what happened to you and let you know on the next show. Next week, we have a guest by the name of Suzanne. Is it Wu Pang Culver? Is that her name? Wu Pang Culver. And she has a nonprofit organization that I can't wait to dive in with you guys. And she's going to be at the IONS meeting in Virginia on the 21st of this month.
Mm-hmm.
So, and as you guys know, Tom is the founder of the Richmond, Virginia IONS organization up there. And we'll talk.
I'm the only surviving founder. I'm not really the founder.
All right. So we'll talk about that next week. I want to thank all of you for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Have a great week. We wish you prosperity, love, and peace. Out.
Namaste.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.